Hi there folks, inspired by my attendance at the European Power Platform Conference where I was a speaker, I had a QR code on my attendee badge, and obviously when I flew as well, I checked in, I had a QR code and used that to check in. So I thought I'd build an end-to-end process using QR codes, Power Automate a Power App, and of course I'm going to show you that use case as well as how to build it. So I'm going to kick things off with this process map that I've generated using Erasure. I've covered this in a previous video, but ultimately I was able to use a prompt to generate this process map. And there are two processes, one for registering for an event and the second for attending and verifying that you have registered for the event. So the purpose of this is really just to give you an overview of what I'm going to showcase. I'll talk you through the different components, the Microsoft Form, the Power Automate Flow, the SharePoint list, and of course the Power App. And then if you hang about, I'll show you how you can actually build this using those different components of the Power Platform. So the idea is simple. Someone will complete a Microsoft form, will capture their details, a flow will trigger that will generate a QR code based on a unique GUID, and then we'll send them an email. And off the back of that email, when they attend on event day, we'll have a Power App that we can simply scan that QR code, validate that they've registered, and also record the fact that they've attended. So if I jump across onto Microsoft Forms, I have a very basic form here. All I'm doing is capturing their full name and their email address. You can capture your additional details as required. But off the back of completing this form, I then have a cloud flow. And you can see from this cloud flow, not many actions. All it's really doing is triggering when a response is received, generating a unique GUID, creating an item or a record, and then generating a QR code based on that unique GUID, which we then send in an email. And I'll explain this flow in more detail shortly. But for now, I'm going to put this into test. Now with the flow in test mode, if I jump back onto my Microsoft form, put it into preview, I can go and fill in the details. My name's Damien Bird, supply my email address, and then when I hit submit, our flow will trigger. And if I jump across onto my email, we can see that I'm now registered and I have a QR code to attend the event. Over on my SharePoint site where I have a list, of course this could be a table in Dataverse. If I refresh that, I can see the unique GUID that was generated for the end user, the name of the user, their email address, and also their arrival date and time, which is currently blank. Now the Power App is based on a big conference, and the aim here is that this app will launch on a mobile phone. Now it just so happens that I have my mobile phone here, and if I set up screencasting, I can bring up Power Apps here, and by selecting my QR app, we can see that I'm now ready to validate a user. So if I jump across back into my email where I have that code, I have the app on my phone. If I click on validate user, you can see we're now live, and instantly we scan that QR code as I show it to the screen, and you can see that it's identified myself and the email address, but it's currently got a big red cross because I haven't yet activated my pass. Now if I click on the activate, the pass is now activated. We have a nice big green tick. If I hit that cross top right, I can go and validate a user again and show it the QR code, and we can see that I've previously checked in. So very quickly, we have a solution end to end that enables a user to sign up for an event. We can validate, we can also activate their pass. And of course, this might also work for visitors to your building. If you're accepting guests and you want to be aware of their whereabouts, have they arrived at the building and have they left the building? Have a QR code on a pass or in an email, and you can validate who someone is. So now I'm going to show you how to build the Power Automate flow to onboard the user and generate a QR code and subsequently send them an email. And then next week, I'll pick up how to build out the Power App. So before I show you how to build the flow, first of all, you need to make sure you've got a Microsoft form. The basic requirements here are that you capture the full name and the email address. And if you're making this available to external users, make sure you go into the ellipses, into settings, and turn on anyone can respond. The other requirement is we need somewhere to store the applicant details. In this case, I'm using a SharePoint list. I've renamed the title to Reg ID so I can save the GUID for the applicant, but also I have a field for the name, a field for the email, and then a field for the arrival date time in order for me to record the fact that someone has physically attended the event and had their pass activated. So to build out our flow, it is an automated cloud flow based on when a new response is submitted. We'll go ahead and create that. I then need to go and pick the form name. In this case, it is called the conference registration. Once we've got that flow triggering, we need to add in a next action for forms, which is all about getting the response details. And again, I'll go and pick out the form name, the conference registration, and the response ID is dynamic. So we pick the lightning bolt and then we can choose response ID. So with those two set up, the next thing I want to do is I want to generate a unique GUID. And the reason I've used GUIDs is it's something that someone's not going to be able to guess very easily. So using a compose action, and I'll call that compose GUID, I can then go into the inputs, choose FX for expressions, and there is a GUID expression that will allow you to generate a unique GUID for each user. The reason I'm adding it into a compose is because I'm going to use it in both the create item and also the generate QR code stage, and I don't want to keep running this GUID independently because then I'll get different GUIDs. So by storing it in a compose, and I can then reference it dynamically, I'm going to create an item, and that item will be in the SharePoint site that I've created based on my QR demo site. I have a registrants list. And if I show all the properties, we have title, which is due to be the GUID, which is the output of our compose GUID. The name is based on the applicant name, which has been supplied in the Microsoft form. And then the email, likewise, is also from that Microsoft form. The arrival date time is something that will populate using the Power App when someone attends the event. So now that we've created an item, we need to physically generate a QR code. Now there are potentially two ways to do this. I have in my demo used an HTTP action, and that HTTP action is premium. If we scroll down here, we can see it. By adding this in, you are going to make your flow a premium flow. You could, in theory, embed the URL that I'm about to give you directly into your email, and then that endpoint will be called by the user's client for their email. But that does then rely on them having internet access. What I'm going to do here is I'm physically going to generate the QR code, get the image, and then embed it as a base64 into the email. The advantage of that is that the physical image is with the user in their email client. They don't need to rely on this third-party API. It's generated by your flow, we have the image, and so does the user. So for generating QR codes, I'm using QuickChart. They have a free API. All you have to do is provide a string, and then with that string, a lovely QR code is generated based on that string. So you can see me physically changing the string in the URL, and it generates a fresh QR code. So with this link back into Power Automate, if I paste that in here to the URI, I can then supply the dynamic value for our GUID, so the outputs from our compose GUID. The method is get, same as the browser. We're getting a page. We're getting a page here in order to get the image, and that will bring back the base64 of the image for the QR code. The final step is just to send an email. So I add in an action, send an email. We need to turn on the advanced mode. That allows us to then select some dynamic values. So I'll go again and choose the email from the Microsoft form. The subject can be "You are registered." And then the body can be something like, "Thank you for registering. You will need this email to attend the event. Please show the QR code on arrival." Now, if I insert a couple of spaces, we need to go into the code view in order to insert code to embed an image. And if I jump on to W3 Docs here, we have an example of an image tag. So we can see this HTML code here. If I copy it back over into my Power Automate send an email action, paste it in. Now the thing to note is we have a whole host of information here, an opening tag for image. We have the fact that this is a PNG, it's base64, and then everything after it, the IV all the way up to the inside of this closing quote, is the base64 of the file. Now, if we delete that, we then replace it with the output from the HTTP action. And I'll show you how we can do that. We go into the FX, into dynamic content. You are going to have to write an expression here. So it's based on the body from the HTTP, but then we need to put in a question mark, some square brackets and single quotes, and it's $content because that's the key that returns the base64 encoding. And we can see that in the history when we run the flow. So if I add that in, that physically grabs the base64 of the image from the HTTP action and embeds that physical image into our email. Your alternative, as we can see here with the image source, is just to provide the URL as part of that image tag. So we could, as a demo, a second demo, include that in our email so we can have a look at both examples. Remember, there are pros and cons. If we provide a direct URL, the end user will need internet access in order to run the physical API. If the API is down, they won't get the QR code. If we embed it as a base64, then as long as they have internet, they've been able to sync their emails, they've got that physical image. So as a second option, if I copy this whole image tag here, I will clean it up, jump back into Power Automate, I'll add in a new line, I can paste in that image, and rather than using this particular source here, what we'll do is we will now include the quick chart text URL like so. And then if I go into the dynamic content, I can supply that GUID. I'm going to remove the width and the height because I'm not going to make those fixed values. And we have alternative text for both options. The first one is the embedded base64. And the second one is a direct link to API. So in this example here, I actually generate the same QR code twice. One is by embedding the QR code using the HTTP connector. The second, as I see here that I'm highlighting, is based on using the URL directly in the client, and there's therefore no need for the premium connector, albeit it does mean that the end user will need internet in order to run that API, and of course quick charts will need to be up and running on the day of presenting their email. So if we go ahead and publish this flow, we can test it. I'll put the flow into test mode. I'll jump across onto my Microsoft form, into preview, again supply my details and my email address. I'll hit submit. My flow completes, and if I have a look at the email, you can see that I have the QR code twice, the first of which is the physical image, and the second, which is actually generated by the web client as the email is downloaded. And so that marks the end of today's demonstration. Hopefully next week you'll return and watch me build out the Canvas app. If you've got any ideas or questions, please do let me know in the comments. If you happen to be about in Vegas in September 2024, do look out for me and say hello. And if you've not yet bought your ticket, don't forget to check out my discount code DEMOBIRD100, which will save you $100. Thanks again for watching, and catch you sometime soon. Cheers.